Go with your
Oh, we are live.
whoop, whoop.
Happy Wednesday, Katie.
Happy Wednesday.
Do you think anybody's watching this right now?
Nah.
Good. It's just like we're talking, which is normally just what we do. And so that's honestly why we're doing this, is because I just want to talk with you. So I figured if we create a show,
I like it.
then we have an opportunity to chat. So that's all this is going to be. It's us chatting about specific topics that we like to talk about, right? Things that we have. Our conversations that we have behind closed doors, we're going to open them up to the YouTube, to the Facebooks, wherever you're watching this, and we're going to have these conversations, right? And so, yeah. So, are you excited for today?
I am
excited. That's how we talk. We ask each other if we're excited for the day. Okay. So the topic today, I'm going to post it up here. So, we're going to be talking about what if my spouse says no, right? And we're not talking about sex. We're not talking about no to kids. We're not talking about no to me going on a boys only trip, going out to the bars, going and drinking, because I'm doing that stuff. But what if my wife says no to investing in real estate?
Ouch.
You should probably say yes to that and maybe say no to all the other stuff I talked about, right?
Maybe.
So this is actually a big question, right? So before we go into this question, if you guys are new here, you guys don't know who I am or know who Katie is. We've been investing in real estate since 2017, and we have now accumulated about 15 rental doors. We got a couple under contract, a couple like in projects, and our portfolio is about $5 million, and it cash flows, I think, about $12,000 a month. And so the reason why we do this is because, like I said, it just allows us to give an opportunity for us to chat to each other, but share some of the lessons we've learned, share some of our experiences, share some of our stories that we think are funny, we think are cool, and a lot of the dumb things we've done. And hopefully you can learn from those, entertain you at least. So, Katie, let's go back actually to our very first investment property that we bought. Again, we bought our primary home in 2017, and then we bought our first traditional investment property in 2019. So as the spouse, tell me your side of the story, because I'm actually genuinely curious. I know my side of the story, but I'm actually curious about your side of the story, how it all happened.
Yeah, it's a great question. So Logan had been studying real estate for a long time prior to us actually pulling the trigger to say yes to our first investment. We had talked a lot about it. We communicated a lot about it. I think the biggest takeaway for me in the initial days was him telling me and involving me in the beginning, and not just one day saying, hey, I got a house under contract, we're going to buy it. I was part of the journey of education and learning all the way up until that first time that we got a house under contract. There were a ton of limiting beliefs that hit my radar as we got closer and closer to actually investing. Little story, I was actually pregnant with Lainey when all of this happened. And initially we had put a couple offers in and everything was declined initially. Everybody said
they rejected us.
Nope.
Why did they reject us?
And
do they know who we
I
are?
think it was 2 weeks after Lainey was born. We got a call from our real estate agent, and he said
Jesse
Lagos. He said they want to talk. They'll accept. I don't remember the amount. They'll accept your offer.
$240,000.
We have a 2-week-old. Shoot. The timing was obviously not ideal. I don't think any timing is ever ideal, but it was an adrenaline rush to not only just have a newborn and being, adding another whole life to our radar, but also becoming a landlord. Woo! Oh man, I have to manage people. I have to, be called in the middle of the night to deal with all of the management side of things.
Those pesky toilets, they always call you in the middle of the night.
It was a lot to take on. So I think that it was scary. It was terrifying. I wanted to say no as well.
Yeah. Why didn't you say no?
Because I'm on your team.
Oh.
And I think it actually empowers us to work better when we work together.
Yeah. But really, why, we're on the same team, but why did you actually go with this idea of investing?
Yeah, great question.
Actually, let's go back a little bit, because I think it's important to understand the whole situation. So when we invested our first property, we dropped $65,000. Right, we took that money out of our bank account and we put it into this deal because we bought this home through a bank, right? Or I should say we financed it through a bank, and they wanted 20. I think we actually put down 25% down. And so at that point, it was like 65. I think it was actually $66,000 to the T, because I had that number somewhere, right? And so why did you say, Logan, this is a great idea. We have a 2-week-old. We have all these new expenses with having a baby. Now we're going to take $66,000 out of our bank account and put it on this property, right? That we didn't live in, by the way. It was a true investment property. Why?
Because the potential.
What potential?
The potential of passive income for years down the road, generational wealth, and just true freedom. Not being tied to that number in the bank account.
So you value that passive income. Like how much money did that property make every single month?
I think it was like $700.
Right, $700, right? So I made $700 of cash flow every single month, and you preferred $700 of cash flow rather than $66,000 in the bank.
Yes.
For most people, they're not going to understand that difference. Like, there's like, that doesn't make sense. I don't want $700. I want $66,000, right? Why? Like, what did that $700 represent to you?
Security. Honestly, $66,000 in the bank is it's terrifying. It's like, what are we going to do with it? Where are we going to put it? And the fact that we put it into a house that actually gave me money every single month, I was like, oh, this is cool. How do we do this again?
Yeah. And I think that's the difference between playing the short-term game. It's like $66,000. Like, look at all the things we could buy. Like, we could go buy new cars. We could buy a house for ourselves. We could buy lots of groceries. We could buy lots of sushi. Right? We go on lots of trips. So you talked about security, but you also said before I rudely interrupted you, you talked a little about freedom. Like, what did that actually mean when you said that $700 represented freedom where $66,000 seemed scary?
Yeah. So I think in the beginning days, we talked a lot about short-term sacrifice for long-term gain, and understanding that living below our means, crunching pennies, like paying attention to every little detail, allowed us to see the potential of success in the future. And when I say success, I actually mean financial freedom. So we knew from the gates we had tracked expenses for a very long time, because it's important to know how much it costs for us to live. So we tracked our expenses for a long time. We figured out basically what our financial freedom number was. What number passively do we need to actually have come in every single month in order to live financially free?
Yeah.
To have our bases covered.
And what was that number? Do you remember?
I don't.
Because it changed. That's why she doesn't know, right? You look at her like, you're silly. Why didn't you know that number? It changes, right? It changed because what we did, we actually did it the real way. We didn't just pick an arbitrary number, right?
Yeah.
Tell people what we did, because I think this is actually really important. So if you guys are listening, listen hard, right? Because this is actually the key to knowing what you want, is to have clarity on why you're doing what you're doing.
So for at least 18 months prior to even buying this house, we sat down every single Sunday and went through every single credit card, every single bank account, every single transaction that passed through anything that had our name on it. And we tracked it.
So we still do that, by the way.
We still do that. Yeah. And it's important because it does change. Sometimes there's months where big expenses come. Orthodontia comes into the picture, and somebody needs braces. There's definitely expenses. The sink goes out, plumbing issues, whatever. There's always going to be expenses that pop up, but if you consistently track it, you can take the average and know what your financial freedom number is.
Yeah. And so roughly, do you remember what our financial freedom number was?
I want to say like $3,500.
$3,500 a month?
A month. $3,500 a month.
$3,500 a month for a family, right? That was just our family expenses. And we actually had our own personal expenses as well, right? And so those were probably like $1,000 to $1,500 a piece.
Yeah.
Right. So I think altogether it was about $6,500 to $7,000 a month of actual expenses that we had between our family and then us personally. Okay. And so that was our number again. And once we had that goal of knowing that's our nut, right? That means that we spend about $7,000 a month in expenses. Well, what it becomes our financial freedom number?
7,000.
Because why?
Because we need to live for free.
We want to live for free, right? Which means that no matter what happens, if we have $7,000 a month of money coming in, that means our basic necessities, our basic expenses, like food, gas, groceries, rent, whatever else is in there is paid for. That means that Katie, if you don't work and you get sick, can you still make your payments?
Yes.
That means if I get COVID in August and I'm out for a month and I can't do anything, does everything still get paid?
True story, that happened. And yes.
Did happen, right? And so that's why it's important to understand what the number is and why it's so valuable, right? So not only does it give you the security, but it also gives you freedom. It gives you security to know that your bills are paid for, but also gives you the freedom to know that, you know what, if you do get sick or something happens where you're not able to produce new money from your job or from your W-2 or from your business, your basic needs are covered. And that's freedom, right? Because now you don't have to I didn't have to hustle back to get to work, right? I have to hustle back to get to my business because you know what? It was set up in a way that didn't need me, and our real estate obviously just did its thing. Like the tenants don't need me in order to pay rent, right? And so that's why it's so valuable. Okay, and so that's what this $60K in the bank versus the $700 a month. That's what it represents. Is the difference is the $700 a month is freedom, and it's not just $700 a month, right? Because that's just what.
That's just one.
That's just one. What happens when you have 15? Again, I told you guys earlier, if you guys are paying attention, how much money do we make every single month from cash flow?
About 12,000.
About 12,000. So $700, that was the stepping stone to get to 12,000, right? And that's just a stepping stone for us to get to 30,000, right? And that's just the stepping stone for us to get to $83,000 a month, which is our goal. Just letting everybody know that's our goal, is to hit $83,000 a month in cash flow. Why is that the goal, Katie?
Why is that the goal?
Because it's an ego thing. It's just to be completely transparent, because it's $1 million of cash flow every single year, right? And I respect Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, and one of the things he said in his third book, Rich Dad Guide to Investing, was that if you're able to make $1 million a year in free cash flow from your investments, that means you are a really good investor, as he called it. So I was like, I want to be a really good investor, right? I think he called it a sophisticated investor. But anyway, so that's why. And honestly, about $50,000 a month, that's no matter what our lifestyle, no matter how much our expenses go up, and we can have all the fancy cars, we can have all the nice expenses, or nice house payments, whatever it is, right? All the personal luxuries that we choose to have, about $50,000 a month, you're living pretty comfortable. Right?
You can't really spend much more than that if you're
about $50,000 a month. You can pretty much have anything that you truly want. Yeah. Right. And then up above that, allows us to do other things, again, invest in more businesses. It allows us to donate more money for us to just continue to do things that we're passionate about. And just be able to say that we did it at the same time, continue to grow our story. So that's why our goal is $83,000 a month.
Yeah.
Right. And so let's get back to the topic at hand. Right. So some of the other limiting beliefs, or the things that came up for you with investing in real estate, but again, I don't necessarily know that you had, because from my perspective was that you were just on board. To be completely honest with you, that's the reason that we've got as successful as we are, is because you were just on board. Anytime I have a crazy idea, I'm like, hey, let's take this money and let's go dump it into this, and it might cash flow a couple $100, but I think it has big potential. If we do this, this, and this, you've always just been very supportive, and to me, that's been everything. That's been super grateful. But I'm sure there's been some thoughts, some things that happen. So please share those thoughts with me, because you've done a great job of always supporting me, truly 100%. But I'm actually curious, what are some of the thoughts you've had?
So I think this brings up a very important point of trust in a relationship, as well as communication. So if you cannot trust the decisions that your spouse makes, what are you doing in your relationship?
Yeah.
Communication needs to be direct. It needs to be honest, and you need to be on the same team. You need to understand that, because you are taking $60,000 out of our bank account, it doesn't mean that we're not both going to benefit. We are a team. It is not like he does this and I do this. We are in this together. We are in the thick of it together. And it was terrifying. I had 1,000 limiting beliefs flood my head, but externally I had to show.
What are some of those beliefs? Obviously, we talked about being fearful of losing the money, but what else? What other limiting beliefs popped in? Yeah,
well, what if we weren't going to work out? What if our relationship was going to go south tomorrow, and your name is on it and mine isn't?
Yeah.
What's going to happen then?
Yeah.
What if I have to get it up in the middle of the night with a 2-week-old and go replace a toilet?
Yeah.
Honestly, what ifs flooded in and there was 1,000 of them? What if the renters didn't pay rent? What if the house burns down?
Yeah. And so let me ask you, did any of these what ifs happen?
No. Not a single one.
Yeah. And let me ask you this, like in a fair question, knowing what you know now, like what if these what ifs did happen?
Yeah, we'd figure them out. I mean, now that we've been in the game for long enough.
Who would take charge of figuring it out?
I would.
Yeah. Who else though?
You.
Yeah. Right. Because we're on the same team. We both want to figure this out. This wouldn't be like, oh, you know what? What if I had to get up 2 weeks with a 2-week-old and I had to go fix a toilet? Like, what if that actually happened? Do you think that the right way to approach that is to blame Logan? Because you know what? I was right, Logan. This did happen. This what if happened. And I told you it's going to happen. And you know what? It's happening. You think that's the right way to approach it?
No, that's not going to go over well.
Like, does that solve the situation?
No.
Right? And so what if happened?
We'd figure it out together.
And would there be any like finger pointing, resisting, like, you know what? I know this was going to happen.
No.
And so I say that to illustrate a point that a lot of times people are not on the same team, right? So this trusting your partner thing is fundamental. It is the key to success in anything, whether it's investing in real estate, whether it's in business, whether it's just your relationship, whether it's parenting. If you do not have trust in that person, if you're not on the same team, those situations, they'll rear their head, and that's when the finger pointing gets going like this, right?
Resentment builds.
It's resentment because you're on the same team before you invest in real estate. So to answer that question, truly, like before you invest in anything, before you do anything, you should like be on the same page with your spouse. Like you need to air out all your dirty laundry. Tell them all the things that you despise about them, that upset you, right? Like say it, because after you say it, it sounds really silly.
It's so silly.
It's so silly.
So one little thing, like this is real life, right? So we talk about everything.
Look how good my biceps look here.
There are,
Do you see that?
Yeah. There are things that drive me nuts that Logan does. And in order for me to communicate them was really hard. So one thing that he does that drives me nuts is he wouldn't trim his fingernails enough. And he would sit here and like
Look at him now though.
Do this.
Look at him now.
But when you communicate them, it sounds silly. And then he can choose to either trim his fingernails more frequently, or I can just not be triggered by it because I've said my piece.
And what has happened?
They're trimmed.
Yeah. And I like it. I enjoy it.
Just an example.
It's a great point. Everything, like anything, like all the pet peeves, all the issues, like you say them out loud, you're able to address them, and you do it in a way that it's not like you need to change, otherwise I'm not gonna be happy with you. Like it wasn't an ultimatum like, Logan, trim your fingernails, otherwise I'm not gonna like you. Just like, Logan, honestly, my preference is that you trim your fingernails. Either way, I still love you. I just want to let you know my preference. Like a much different way to approach a situation than dude, or like backhanded comments. Like I'll catch Katie making some backhanded comments, and I'll call her out. I'm like, dude, like, do you think that helped? Like just like say what you need to say in a way that's approachable, rather than like, bro, like cut your freaking fingernails, dude. Like, or like maybe if you cut your fingernails, then maybe you want to scratch your face. You know, like things like that. Like those are the type of backhand comments that if you let that communication go without being addressed, without like confronting it, that's when you have these big blowups, and all of a sudden you can't invest in freaking real estate because you don't cut your freaking fingernails.
Wow.
Boom. Let's go.
So if you want to invest in real estate, have your partner trim their fingernails. If
you guys didn't get anything other than that from this video today, then that's your fault. Okay. Trim your fingernails. So it definitely goes back to trust, right? Trust on everything, being on the same page. Like that's how we've been able to grow as fast as we have, and we will continue to grow, is that we stay on the same page. We still have conversations. We still making sure that that's why we do our weekly meetings. Kate talked about a little bit about doing weekly expenses. We also have, like, with that same meeting, we have a marriage meeting that goes right behind that, where we rate ourselves based on like how you did as a wife, how I did as a husband, how we did as parents, how we did in business, how we showed up. Like we have certain values that we share, and then we hold ourselves accountable to those values.
And I actually think that the marriage meeting that we hold every single week and we can call each other out on things is the most important meeting. Finances is second. The first is actually making sure that how we serve each other is how we need to be served. So for the first year of us doing our marriage meeting, thank you, Alex and Layla, for recommending us to do a marriage meeting. But for the first year, I bawled every single time. It was really hard to hear, hey, you're coming up short in this area and this area and this area. Like, you need to step your game up. It sucked. It sucked really bad. Like, I felt like an anchor to our success and everything because I had to grow. Now, today, fast forward, how many years have we been doing it?
3
or 4. Yeah. And fast forward to today, I look forward to them because I'm like, how can I improve? How can I do better? How can I serve you better? And it makes a huge difference. Like, being able, it also opens lines of communication. So when you know that you're going to have a meeting, you can wait to bring up touchy subjects until the meeting. And then you get so comfortable with each other that you're like, you can have a one-off conversation, a one-off marriage meeting in the middle of a debate, and come to a resolution in the heat of the moment.
It helps create a system to allow you in the beginning, especially if you're not good at communicating. So a lot of people out there probably aren't very good at communicating with their spouse.
We aren't very good at communicating.
Yeah, I know you're not very good. If you're watching this, you're not good at communicating. I promise you. I know it. 100% chance. Okay. And so what the weekly marriage meeting does is it gives you an opportunity for you and your spouse to have this safe place to do a reset, to say all the crap that you wanted to say to them for maybe it's been months, maybe it's been years, maybe it's been over a decade, who knows, right? It gives you the safe opportunity to say what you're actually feeling. You say what needs to be said, right? This is part of our core values is communication is the compass, where we're like, it's just like we have the right to say what needs to be said in a way that is helpful, in a way that it serves us, not in a way of like,
don't just be a dick to be a dick.
Yeah, don't just be a dick, right? But it gives you this structure behind that. And what are some of the, this is great, Katie. What are some of the objections that when we tell people about this marriage meeting that they have?
Time. We don't have time.
Time. What about people who are not in business? Like, what are some of the things that they say? Because obviously, like, we're in business, so it makes sense to have meetings, right? It's like structured communication cycles. It makes sense. We understand the consistency is important. But people who are not in business, what are some of their limiting beliefs around having a marriage meeting?
It's not natural. It's not. What's the word I'm looking for?
They don't want to treat their marriage like a business.
I'll never forget. This is hilarious. So Logan is doing sales and he's like
tangent.
Yeah. He's like a sales fanatic, right? Like, he's really good at doing sales. And somebody made a comment that, like, I don't even remember. He sold me. He literally sold me every single day on being his spouse. To this day, he sells me every single day on being a spouse. It is business.
She did not like that when I told her that.
No, I hated it. I was like, ooh, I'm not.
You need to sell me.
Buying your shit.
Yeah. And so.
No, that was it. You asked me to sell you.
I asked you to sell me.
Yeah. I don't want to be a sleazy car salesman.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it just gives you an opportunity, right, to have that conversation. And then from there, you get better at it and it's a skill. It's a skill to be able to confront. It's a skill to be able to, like, hey, and like take the frame and say what needs to be said and do it in a way that serves both you and the person who you're trying to communicate with. Because ultimately, like, letting things go under the rug and you not communicating things and like doing one of these, sure, in that moment, it might seem easier, but in the long run, guess why divorces happen? Guess why people end up resenting each other? Like, how does somebody go from like truly like madly falling in love with somebody to eventually hitting that person? Do you think it just happens on accident because they quote unquote fall out of love? No. It's such bullshit. Like, it's the big bullshit. It's you stop doing the freaking work, right? Love is work. Marriage is work. It is an exercise. If you fail to perform it on a daily basis, it's a skill. If you stop doing something, what's going to happen?
It's going to fall apart.
And all relationships are built on one principle, and that's communication. When there's no communication to be had, like what happens, like Kitty, when you had because Kitty's only had one boyfriend, and that was me. But aside, but before like WWLD, right? Before Logan lived, yeah, I think that's how it goes. Anyway, before Logan, like when you had to like talk with these people who said they were your girlfriend, but they weren't your boyfriend. Like, how did you break up with them? Was it like you were like texting them all the time? You're like trying to see where they're at, or was it something else?
No, I usually just stop communicating with them.
Yeah. Right. And so lacking communication is how we start to distance ourselves from somebody. And so when you're not communicating with somebody, that's just the first telltale sign that you're on the way out.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. So communication is the compass, one of our core values. Write that one down. Yeah. So weekly marriage meeting.
Tough conversations.
Tough conversations.
And I think the most important thing is truly your marriage is the foundation of your life. So if your spouse is not on board, it's not their fault. It is, there's something that's lacking. They don't feel like they are involved. They don't feel like they've been explained the situation. Like, get them to get on board by include them in everything, in the conversations, in the setbacks, in the vision, in everything. Like, it is truly the foundation to everything, is communication, telling each other what you want in life, and making sure.
What do you want in life, Katie?
I want $83,000 of passive income.
Why?
Because it sounds like I could be really. It's an ego thing, as Logan says.
Yeah.
I want to be able to do whatever I want, whenever I want, with whoever I want, wherever I want.
Yeah. Yeah. I should make you go down on that and like actually figure out your why right in front of everybody. Like, why do you want that? Like, what do you want to do that you can't do right now?
This is like we need to actually do a separate one on this, because for a long time, my goals were his goals.
Which are great goals, by the way.
They are great goals, but they are not my goals. And they don't need to be my goals. We have shared goals, absolutely. Like $83,000 of passive income is a shared goal. We both want that.
Yeah.
But the why behind our goals is different, and my personal goals are different. But for a long time, I chased.
What are some of your personal goals?
I chased your goals.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some of your goals, though?
Currently, I
share some goals.
I announced this before too, but I would love to weigh 140 pounds.
Yeah. Why?
Because I show up better as a spouse, as a mother, as a business owner.
Yeah.
Everything. Like, when my nutrition is on point, it just cascades into every other aspect of my life. So when I prioritize myself, when I take care of myself, it allows me to be the best version of who I am in all facets of life.
That's awesome.
So, like, all the way back to my goals being his goals, that's not serving me. And when I don't serve myself, I don't show up as myself.
Yeah, I don't want to weigh 140 pounds.
Please don't.
Okay, I'm gonna keep you on the spot. Just give me like one more goal. So we talked about wealth goals. We talked about health goals. Give me one other goal that you want to share with our captive audience.
Yeah. This one's love-based and relationship-based, connection-based. So I have a goal in 2022 to have 12 dates with our daughters individually. So we have 2 daughters, so that's 24 dates, and 12 dates with you.
Oh, how many dates have we gone this year?
Us 0.
Oh, that's some work to do.
Laney's had 2. Kobe's had 1.
So if you guys have some good date ideas out there, Kitty needs to do 12, right? And I'm still waiting. Still waiting. Yeah, no, it's cool, right? It's cool to be able to share those goals, because that's why it's important, right? It's important to share those goals. Yeah. Anything else on the marriage meeting? Any other value? Oh, let's go back to this, because treating your marriage like a business. This is one of the things that I think is a great belief, a great limiting belief to have. Love isn't supposed to be structured. It's not supposed to be like a business. It needs to be
that's what
emotional.
I was
It needs to be emotional. It needs to be emotional, right? Let me ask you this. That's fine. I'm not disagreeing with you. But when you go to do business, would you rather do business with somebody who has been in business for a really long time, who has, let's just say, like a franchise, who has multiple locations all over the world, and when you go into the one in Bozeman, Montana, which we're at, you can go into the same one in Phoenix, Arizona, and get the same level of service? Would you prefer that, or would you rather just take a random chance on going to a random restaurant in Bozeman, and then you have to go to a random chance, or then you go to another restaurant in Phoenix with a total random chance of a different experience, right? And while most people, they want some variety in their life, of course, necessarily not having variety, but like, you know what the experience is going to be when you go to Applebee's in Bozeman versus, and then you know what the experience is going to be when you go to Applebee's in Phoenix, Arizona. It's going to be relatively the same. You're going to be able to expect the same things on the menu and be able to expect a lot of the same, the look and the feel of it. And so a marriage is very much the same thing. It's a combination of variety and certainty, right? Because ultimately, like, a lot of times we like to eat the same things, but sometimes like to spice it up, right? Your marriage is the same thing. You need to have consistency in your marriage, right? Like marriage meetings, like communication cycles. Like,
without the consistency, you cannot have the spontaneity.
Yes, that's it. That's the key. She said it. Did you guys hear that? Say it again.
Without the consistency, you cannot have the spontaneity.
Why is that?
Because the expectations are inconsistent. They're like sporadic and all over the place with spontaneity. But when you have the baseline of consistency, you can actually incorporate the spontaneity.
Yes. And that is the key, is when you have a foundation to build from. Katie knows that I'm going to show up every single day a certain way. She knows I'm going to show up happy. She knows that I'm going to take responsibility. She has to worry about Logan. You know, is Logan going to be a dick today, or is he going to be nice? Like, what am I going to get? Right. And so when I'm able to show up consistent for her, also when variety comes in, like, hey,
date
night, like, boom, like it can go. Or like, I'm thinking more even back to investing. Like, Katie, guess what? We have this opportunity to buy an Airbnb for $1.6 million, right? In Arizona. Like, what do you think about that? And she's like, okay. Right? It's like, because we have so much consistency here, we have so much structure, all of a sudden when we have something that was like totally different, totally different opportunity, and I come at her with like, I've obviously thought about it, I have done my homework, she's like, okay, right? Or she can like, well, I mean, she can do whatever she wants, but like, that's the situation that actually just happened. And she's like, okay, like, it wasn't a big deal. It's because the consistency, and then all of a sudden it allows us to have variety of like buying, you know, different investment properties here, doing other certain things because of that consistency, right? So without consistency, you can't have variety. Quote by Katie, great quote, right? Okay, so I think that was. Anything else? I mean, so the whole point of this conversation, if you've been watching for the last 30 minutes, thank you. I appreciate you. God bless you. And yeah, if you have been, like, comment. I'm curious. Like, I see a couple of comments in there.
What's your takeaway?
Yeah, what's your takeaway? What's your takeaway in there? But outside of that, I think we hit the nail on the head. Is just, if you want to invest in anything, whether it be real estate, whether a business, whether you want to like grow with your, like, grow in anything, like, the number one person you can have is your spouse, right? And so like, my number one is Katie. Katie's number one is me. And ultimately, like, when we understand that, like, we are a team, we truly on the same team, and we have clear communication cycles. We have clear goals. We have clear things that we have our roles that we do as well. We're able to grow. We're able to move at a higher rate and at a faster speed because we're both on the same page and we're really clear on what we want. Right?
Communication is the compass.
Communication is the compass. So I appreciate you guys for listening. We'll be back again, and we'll be doing this more because I just want to have conversations with my wife. And the only way I can do that is by putting her on a podcast. She's so dang busy for me. Kids and running multiple businesses, having 15 rentals, you know, there's lots of work that goes into it. And she literally does it all. Like, she does everything. So
thank you.
I appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
All right, guys. Happy Wednesday.
Katie Manzanares.
Logan Manzanares.
Bye.
Bye.